From 2007 to 2009, single middle-aged men were dying in Japan in mysterious circumstances. Initially, police did not attach any importance to this, but just one case revealed the mystery of the girl whom the press dubbed the Black Widow. Kanae Kijima was born on November 27, 1974, in Nakashibetsu, Japan. She was the eldest of 4 siblings. Although the names of her relatives were not made public, it is known that her father was a notary and her mother a piano teacher. Kanae's parents, who came from wealthy families, tried to raise their children in a favorable environment, providing them with everything they needed as they grew up. However, as the firstborn, Kanae received special attention. Inspired by her mother's musical passion, she began developing her talent for piano playing, spending countless hours honing her technique. Her abilities became evident in a very short time. She even performed solo concerts on various stages and participated in prestigious competitions. But this wasn't Kanae's only interest. At age 9, she already knew how to cook, a quality her mother believed foreshadowed a good future as a wife. At the same time, to raise a worthy generation, her father imposed strict discipline at home, including limiting access to television. He also gave them virtually no money for personal expenses. Kanae easily coped with her first harsh parental rules. That be why the rules, she was an active and excellent student. However, she struggled with limited access to money. She was prone to luxury and extravagance. Kanae found her father's strictness unbearable, and she soon gave in to her instincts. In high school, she discovered that her father kept $21,000 in cash at home and embezzled the money, which she then spent on exclusive clothing and handbags. As soon as her father learned of this, he punished Kanae by cutting her allowance. But contrary to her father's wishes, the girl did not regret it, but on the contrary, she craved even more money. So she found herself in the intriguing world of dating. Having plucked up her courage, Kanae began offering her company to older men in exchange for a generous monetary reward. In this context, she entered into a relationship with a man of about 40 years old, whose identity is unknown. Under his influence, Kanae stole the bank book of one of her classmates. Then the two of them withdrew about $80,000 from her. When the authorities discovered them, they were arrested and brought to trial. But since Kanae was still a minor, she received a suspended sentence. Despite this, she maintained excellent academic performance and graduated from high school. After that, she decided to move to Tokyo and enroll in the Faculty of Economics. However, Kanae's interest in studying disappeared almost immediately, and she dropped out of college. Nevertheless, the girl understood that the city fascinated her and did not want to leave. To make ends meet, she took several temporary and unstable jobs. One of them was work as a waitress in a fast food restaurant. The long hours, difficult environment, and low salary haunted her. She was constantly worried about how to pay the rent for an apartment she hated because it was very modest. It was only a matter of time before Kanae developed a new vile habit. She would go into a store and, pretending to be an ordinary customer, steal cosmetics, books, and even money. Although she was caught several times, she managed to avoid arrest. These random thefts were not enough for the standard of living she aspired to. Then Kanae quit her job. She decided to go to an escort club. These establishments offered services from conversations and social meetings to more intimate communication. Clients had the opportunity to choose a woman based on the information provided. However, with a height of 1 meter 50 centimeters and a weight of 105 kilograms, Kanae did not fit into generally accepted standards of beauty. So at first she did not attract much attention. But everything changed when she met the pimp Takeuchi, who became her mentor. He taught her how to satisfy a man and inspired her to create an entire marketing strategy, and told her that she needed to look for middle-aged or older men with low self-esteem and not inclined to desire the women they really wanted. Having realized the value of her own skills and virtues, Kanae learned to establish emotional connections with her partners. She discovered that kindness and attention contribute not only to attracting attention, but also appreciation. Kanae became an expert in the art of seduction, able to read people and understand what they wanted. She discovered a new, unprecedented power within herself. At that time, Kanae adopted the pseudonym Sakura, and under it, invented a story about her father being a professor at the prestigious Tokyo University, the most elite educational institution in the country. At other times, she posed as a nurse, a therapist, or a famous chef. All these fictitious stories created a captivating image in this new role. One of her clients was Sadao Fukuyama. They met in February 2001 at a bar, and their conversation was so intense that within 2 weeks, they became lovers. Not only that, but a man previously known for his frugality and careful spending made the mistake of trusting her, which Kanae easily took advantage of. To begin with, she invented a story about her parents' death in a plane crash and said she couldn't afford tuition at the music school in Boston where she supposedly studied. Then Sadao promised to cover all expenses, and she, in turn, promised to come from the United States once a month and meet with him. The man eagerly awaited these visits, elegantly dressed and in love with the woman he considered his fiancée, and Kanae took advantage of the opportunity to empty most of his savings. A few years later, realizing that she had already exhausted all financial options, Sadao Kanae put an end to their relationship. Cunning and manipulative, she left no trace that would allow her to be found when the man suspected that he had become a victim of deception and tried to report her. The evidence was insufficient to initiate a case. A few months later, in August 2007, Sadao was late for work. Concerned, one of his colleagues went to his home and found him dead in the shower when the news became public. Kanae transferred $50,000 from her ex-fiancé's funds to her bank account since the police were unable to determine the cause of death. The case was registered as a domestic accident. In 2008, Kanae became interested in the development of the internet in Japan after analyzing the obvious advantages of the virtual world. She decided to change her strategy and created a profile on the main local social networks dedicated to finding a partner under the pseudonym Sakura. In her description, she made it clear that she was seeking a serious relationship to start a family. Kanae understood the characteristics and needs of her potential victims perfectly well. She knew that they were mostly men with high work and social burdens, high incomes, and emptiness in their souls. Furthermore, her strategy was to adapt to the situation and voluntarily change depending on the preferences of her interlocutors. In this sense, Kanae sometimes appeared as a young woman seeking true love, a talented pianist, or even a pet store owner with a passion for cooking. It didn't take her long to become a true virtual celebrity. Her profile was especially popular with mature and elderly men who were looking to give their old age a worthy meaning. One of those who fell in love with Kanae was a 53-year-old systems engineer who lived in the suburbs of Tokyo because his daily life was limited to commuting home from work, and the only people he communicated with were his mother and sister. In February 2008, Takao decided to try meeting someone online. 2 months later, Kanae sent him an invitation to chat and expressed hope for future marriage. But first she asked for financial assistance to cover some expenses. At the same time, Kanae posed as a nurse and caregiver for the elderly. Kenzo Andu, an 80-year-old man, responded to an ad posted online. He lived in the city of Noda, Chiba Prefecture. Although his income was small, it came from a respected family. His father was a famous artist, from whom he inherited valuable works. In addition, Kinzu suffered from some health problems. When they first met, Kanae sent him a carefully retouched photo in which part of her body was barely visible. Kinzu was impressed and hired her as a nurse and cook. Kanae not only cooked special dishes for him, but was also ready to do anything to please him. This is how she won his devotion and gratitude. A month later, she turned to Kinzu for a loan, stating that the money was needed to pay for her university studies. Without thinking twice, he gave her all his savings. At the same time, Kanae manipulated Takao's feelings, who, without hiding his emotions, told his mother about his fiancé's exceptional attitude towards him and about his plans to marry. Kenzo, in turn, was so imbued with Kanae's trust that he gave her a copy of the key to his house, but then the man fell into a coma and had to be hospitalized. In his absence, she entered and left the house, taking paintings with her, which she then sold at high prices. In addition, at the same time, she deceived other men. In all cases, their names were not made public, but it is known that their ages range from 40 to 50 years old. While Takao dreamed of a life together, Kanae already had a plan, and it was completely different. She bought electric stoves online and arranged to meet him at his home. Before the date, she took sleeping pills with her. After preparing dinner for both of them, she crushed several pills and mixed them with food. A few minutes later, Takao lost consciousness. Kanae dragged him into the room, closed all the doors and windows, installed the stoves, put coal on them, and turned them on before leaving. Kanae transferred $121,000 from Takao's account to her own bank account. She also took the house keys and computer. 5 days later, on February 4th, 2009, Takao's boss came to his home to check if everything was okay. Without receiving an answer, he contacted the local authorities, and Takao's lifeless body was found. After analyzing the call history, investigators discovered that the only people on the contact list were his mother, sister, and Kanae, under the pseudonym Sakura. When officers contacted Kanae, she reported that Takao was emotionally unstable and likely took his own life after experiencing mental pain due to the fact that he proposed to her. But she rejected him due to the lack of signs of violence. This version seemed quite logical to the police, and as a result, the investigation was not continued. After coming out of a coma, Kinzu returned home. On the evening of May 15, 2009, Kanae visited him as usual, sat with him, and began preparing dinner, but this time she added a special ingredient to his dish: sedatives. As soon as Kinzu fell asleep, she locked him in the room and repeated the procedure with the stoves as in the case of her other victims before leaving. She gained access to Kinzu's bank account and transferred $13,000 to her own. However, this time, one of the electric stoves caught fire and the flames engulfed the entire house. Kinzu died instantly from fatal burns. A subsequent autopsy revealed that the man had consumed an unusual amount of sleeping pills. It also turned out that he had never used similar drugs before. Despite this, authorities ruled his death an accident. Meanwhile, Kanae continued to blog, searching the internet for more and more victims. In July 2009, Yoshiyuki Oita stumbled upon her account and, unable to resist her charms, sent her a message. Yoshiyuki was a 41-year-old single man. In addition to his salary, he received income from renting out the family property. He was also very close to his mother, who lived in Kijima. When they first met, Kanae introduced herself as a graduate student looking for a man who could support her financially and whom she could marry. Intrigued by her words, Yoshiyuki invited her to meet in 2 days. Days passed. Kanae made it clear to Yoshiyuki that their relationship was growing stronger. They announced their engagement and began making wedding plans. At the same time, within the framework of a prenuptial agreement, she persuaded him to transfer $30,000 to pay for her graduate studies. August 5, 2009 was marked on the couple's calendar as a special date. For this occasion, they planned a trip to Fujiyama, where they were going to relax for 3 days. At the same time, the main reason for Yoshiyuki's excitement was the meeting of the two most important women in his life. His mother and Kanae was so excited that he wanted to share his happiness on his own blog and even announced the upcoming wedding. Kanae prepared a sumptuous dinner in honor of the celebration, and unbeknownst to Yoshiyuki, she ground up various substances and slipped them into his food at the end of the evening. They set off for their destination in a rented car. Arriving in the city of Kijima, the couple stopped in a parking lot. That's when the pills took effect on Yoshiyuki, and he fell into a deep sleep. Afterward, Kanae lit the coals and left the man locked in the car. Everything was as usual, but this time she made a mistake. Kanae forgot to leave the keys in the car at that time, and the only security camera recorded her leaving. Kanae then stole $35,000 from Yoshiyuki's account. When police officers discovered the body, they initially thought the man had taken his own life, but when it turned out that the car keys were nowhere to be found, this caused bewilderment, which almost immediately turned into suspicion, since no note justifying Yoshiyuki's actions was found. In addition, there were no traces of charcoal on his hands or clothing in the car. No matches were also found, according to Yoshiyuki's mother, that her son seemed to have no reason to make such a radical decision. In fact, he was more than happy with what life offered him, which was confirmed by investigators after studying his blog. The autopsy revealed that the cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning, but also revealed another detail: traces of tranquilizers in his system. Linking everything together, the police noticed that 3 bachelors had died under similar circumstances with Yoshiyuki that same year, which raised concerns and suspicions. When police gained access to surveillance footage, Kanae was exposed. However, the lack of additional cameras prevented the discovery of crucial evidence. But from that point on, all investigations focused on her. Then, when Yoshiyuki's computer was analyzed, it became clear how they met. When investigators approached Kanae, she stated that she had met Yoshiyuki the day before and left him alone. She also suggested that after her departure, the man could have done something to commit suicide. But despite Kanae's statement, the police decided to launch a thorough investigation, collecting information about all the deaths and cases of fraud that linked her to the people involved. On September 15, 2009, Kanae again came into contact with another 43-year-old man, although his name remains unknown, posed as an American culinary student in Japan. She also led him to believe she was having family problems and financial difficulties paying for her studies. Finally, Kanae told him she was willing to drop everything, including her studies, to be with him. The next day, her new lover sent her $17,000, and a few days later, Kanae moved into his house. She also purchased 2 electric stoves and cut all the fire alarm wires in the house. Kanae's plan was thwarted when the groom's sister arrived at the residence on September 23, 2009, with the idea of staying for a few days. The girl immediately began to suspect her new sister-in-law and tried to convince her brother not to continue the relationship. The matter worsened when he told her about the strange circumstances of their meeting and the money he lent her. Then the sister decided to follow her intuition and told the police everything she knew. On September 25th, police arrived at the residence and arrested Kanae on charges of fraud. When they searched the room, they found that all the alarm devices were turned off, indicating that the girl was going to carry out a procedure typical for her. During the search, various medications were also found, including several classes of drugs that cause drowsiness and sedation. In addition, investigators found all the online purchases of stoves on her computer. This evidence made it possible to establish a direct link with previous cases. Thus, she was the main suspect in the death of Yoshiyuki. In January 2010, when investigations into unusual deaths continued, Kanae was charged with multiple counts of fraud, and a month later, she was indicted on murder charges, specifically for Takau's death. Although an autopsy was never performed in this case, the indictment was based on the lack of clear evidence regarding the cause of death, leading to an unusual situation. During the trial, she maintained her innocence, arguing that the deaths were accidents or personal decisions of the men. This was consistent with her defense strategy, which sought an acquittal, citing a lack of compelling evidence in the absence of direct evidence and witnesses. The prosecution's confessions emphasized the importance of circumstantial evidence, such as her presence with the victims before their deaths. The similarities in the causes of death without all body tests showed the men had consumed a drug that Kanae had also detected. The prosecution also stated that the girl received large loans from her 3 victims and killed them to avoid paying back the money. According to prosecutors, Kanae used coal and electric stoves to poison the 3 victims in order to confuse the authorities, since death by poisoning is a common method of suicide in Japan. Finally, on April 13, 2012, the jury found Kanae guilty of murdering 3 men, and as a result, the judge sentenced her to death. Doomed to death, Kanae continued to maintain her blog, in which she continued to talk about her experiences, and the fame she acquired even brought her financial support from some fans willing to improve her living conditions. Incredibly, one of the fans who provided her financial support eventually married Kanae. This happened in 2015, and according to available data, the man was about 60 years old. However, after an accident, he became disabled, which made it impossible to further support him financially. Then she divorced him. Kanae also used the time spent behind bars to write memoirs, which were then published weekly in a women's magazine. At the same time, she published an autobiographical novel, Praise 100 Days After the Divorce. Kanae married again, this time to a real estate entrepreneur. But a few months later, they divorced in 2018. Kanae decided to marry again. In this case, the chosen one was a 40-year-old man who worked in the publishing house responsible for the publication of her book. While awaiting execution, Kanae continued to lead an active, controversial life, causing both admiration and condemnation. Friends, what do you think about this story? Write your opinion in the comments, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel and other social networks. You can find links to them in the description under this video. We're not saying goodbye.